Okay, so what we're here to talk about tonight is a brand new operating event called Volunteers on the Air. So just exactly what is Volunteers on the Air, or I'm going to kind of abbreviate it here as Vota. It's a year-long operating event. It started at the beginning of the year at 00 hours, and it ends at 23:59 on December 31st at the end of this year. So it's a full year-long event. It's actually two events in one. Half of it is the activation of W1AW/X. X could be 0 through 9. So, -7 or /7 would be activations that would occur in our area here. Portable stations for W1AW portable awards, very similar to what they did in 2014. We're going to talk a lot about this. The second half of this is amateurs contacting ARRL volunteers, their staff, ARRL donors. They're volunteers too. They volunteer their money. So donors and members on the air, and put them on the air and try to collect what are called Vota QSO points. So we're going to talk about what those are here in a bit also. And by the way, this program is still evolving. It kind of came in at the last minute, and some sicknesses at headquarters. Towards the end of the year, they had a COVID kind of run through there, and so we're a little bit behind, but the program is still evolving. Not everything's up and running yet. The website's not completely up and running yet. They still got to get IT support to get that done, but it's working, and the program is on the air. So where did all this come from? Where did this Vota come from? Well, members have been asking, and several directors have been coming to the PSC telling us that they would like to see another new year-long operating event to try to get members coalesced and get them on the air again. All this was brought to the PSC as an agenda item in our January 2022 meeting, was approved by the PSC, and we asked ARRL staff there, which is Bob Nelman, the operations manager, to come back with the PSC and bring us some suggestions at our next meeting, so we can kind of decide where we want to go with this. They came back in July 2022, in the middle of the year last year, with this Volunteers on the Air program, which is based on the very successful ARRL Centennial event of 2014. Then from the 2014 event, they learned a little bit and used that to generate the National Parks on the Air, that NOPA event of 2016, and then finally the Grid Square Chase event of 2018. So you can see every 2 to 4 years or so, we just try to have a large event. And we hadn't had one since 2018. It's now 2022, 4 years, so it's time to have a new event. This proposal was accepted by the PSC, and then the staff went off and went to work. So let's talk a little bit about, since a lot of this is based on the Centennial event of 2014, was kind of used as the starting point. Let's talk about how that event went. This was the original year-long event. It was broken into the two different operating events running simultaneously. The ARRL Centennial QSO Party, which is very much like Vota on the Air right now. And they also had the W1AW/X operations in all 50 states, plus had several of the territories. They had Guam, they had Virgin Islands, they had other little Caribbean states or Caribbean areas out there were included as part of the W1AW/X operations. And they also had a special call sign for headquarters, W100AW. I'm sure many of you guys might have worked them during that and gotten a special QSL card. So how successful was the Centennial event? Well, participation certainly exceeded expectations. Nearly 16,000 people got at least 1,000 points in the points challenge. 16,000 got at least 1,000 points. 1,000 would be contacting at least 5 of the but it'd be more than that. So anyway, it'd be probably 5 of the directors would be 1,000. At least 16,000 got that many points. 2,500 reached the top level at 15,000 points or so. So I mean, there were a lot of activity. And oh, by the way, the W1AW/X stations combined for nearly 3.5 million QSOs. That's a lot of QSOs, and that was both a blessing and a curse, as we're going to talk about here in a little bit. So what's different? What's really different between the ARRL Centennial of 2014 and the Vota event of this year? Well, in a similar fashion to the 2014 event and the grid chase, the event will be exclusively driven by QSOs uploaded to Logbook of the World. Not by the people that are working it, but by people, the volunteers and the W1AW/X stations. What's different this time is there are no physical W1AW/QSO cards, and that's for very good reason. And I'll explain that in a second. And there's also going to be no work band activity. It's going to be on 160, 80, 40, 20, 15, 10, and the standard VHF, UHF bands, and not the work bands. And there also will be no special W1AW call sign, but they will be on there. They'll be on the air as W1AW state with volunteers manning the station. So they will not be silent, but they won't be using a special call sign. Let's talk a little bit about the W1AW portable stations on the air. Hams, both ARRL members and non-members, and you're going to hear me say here a couple of times that this event is not only just for ARRL members, but also for non-members. And you can earn points for contacting as many of these W1AW portable stations as you can. And of course, the goal would be to work W1AW/X in all 50 states. And I will say that this is not part of the Worked All States program. So the two awards do not overlap. Because on there, you'd have to have a double, you'd have to have proof of the card there. Here, there's no card. So I talked to Bart today, and he made it very clear to me that you can't really overlap the two. It's in addition to, it's a new kind of Worked All States. Each state will be on the air twice throughout the year, usually a few months apart. So propagation and different clubs will be in the states will be operating and getting more people to get a chance to get on the air. And the schedules as to which states will be active, and I think I got a graphic that went over the top here, as a portable station is handled through a Vota dashboard and will be updated as addition changes occur. And I'm going to be showing you guys what that looks like here in a little bit. I apologize for the graphic that slipped down over the text. And W1AW/X portable stations will upload all their contacts to Logbook of the World. You don't have to even be a participant of Logbook of the World, because as long as they have worked you're in their log, you will be part of the POTA program, even if you're not an ARRL member, even if you know nothing about Logbook of the World. You can go on the website, you can see where your standings are, what you have confirmed, because it'll be confirmed by the uploads going to Logbook of the World. So we got these W1AW stations. What does it take to be a W1AW portable station? Well, each state has one or two W1AW coordinators that have been assigned working with headquarters and who kind of keep track of the stations they want to use as W1AW portable stations. These coordinators are usually associated with a larger DX or contest club in their state, because we want to have the larger stations involved to get the biggest signals out there, so we get the most amount of worldwide exposure for the event. Their job is to put together a spreadsheet capable of capable volunteer stations by band and by operating mode. This is an all mode, all band operating event, single sideband, CW, digital, even FT8. For the entire week of the W1AW activation. So their job is to put this giant spreadsheet there, have people get on there, sign up for operating times and operating modes, and then keep track of it all. And then eventually collect all the Logbook of the World data and get that into headquarters. So it's pretty good job to have, pretty difficult job to have, and they've got to really know what they're doing. And we tried to get a lot of the same coordinators that were used in 2014 and the 2016 and 2018 events. So here's what, if you go on the website today, here's what you'd see. The ones that have currently are assigned. You can see we've got, for example, on 111, Nebraska should have been on the air today as W1A0/0. This guy named Matt Anderson, KA0BOJ, was the coordinator, and there's his email address. And this is to kind of keep track of where they are. You'll see there's a couple of holes here. For example, Texas is due to come on 2/1. They are not currently, they don't have a coordinator for that yet. Down here on 3-8, you'll see Kentucky. And so, but compared to where this was a couple of weeks ago, this is tremendously more filled out than it was in the middle of December. So I'm very happy to see that. And staff has been working very hard to find people to do this. One thing you will notice is that during for example, the ARRL DX phone contest, which is March 4th and March 5th, there will be no states activated because everybody will be busy with the ARRL DX the phone contest, and there really won't be room on the band anywhere for a serious Vota effort. So the big contest weekends and also the Hamvention are usually blocked out. The larger station guys are usually at those events. The volunteer stations are generally pretty well equipped, and the idea is to have operators that can handle huge pileups. And I'm going to talk about what the pileups are here in a bit. But it can be anywhere from a fairly small station. This happened to be a picture I just pulled up off the web today to show a guy sitting at a fairly small station. Probably got a tri-bander outside. That's perfectly adequate. There's a picture of me there. I've got a kind of a medium-sized station. I got a couple of operating positions, and I'm sure I'll be part of the W1AW/7 when we're in Oregon here. I'll bring operators in to operate. And of course, there's the big gorillas. They're K3LRs and W3LPLs, and the K9CT, Craig in Indiana. The big guys will be out there too, because once again, this is a worldwide event, and we want these signals to get out. What you're probably not going to have as a W1AW stroke is a guy with a 100-watt station with an antenna in their attic. That's just not going to cut it for this particular event. That's one of the reasons, as I mentioned, that they're going to the DX clubs and trying to get some of the larger stations to put their stations on the air as W1AW to give them the largest amount of chance of working as many people as possible. And I mentioned before, there's going to be no QSL cards this time. And with 3.5 million QSOs, and you figure maybe even if 10% of them want QSL cards, that's 3.5, that's million QSOs, 350,000 QSL cards. And think what it takes to mail out 350,000, to fill out and then mail out 350,000 QSL cards. During the Centennial event, the headquarters was literally stacked floor to ceiling with QSL cards. And it cost a tremendous amount of money, a tremendous amount of labor to get all that out. And this year they said, you know what, we're not going to do that. We're going to strictly use the logbook of the world as our the one way we're gonna acknowledge the QSOs. And of course, what's theirs at the end are the awards, right? There'll be W1AW Worked All States Awards. There'll be one for the point counts. So what there are, you're gonna have it so you can go on the website, download it, print it up at home, and you got your award. Let's talk a little bit about the event itself. It's exactly as it sounds. Volunteers on the air, ARRL volunteers, staff, and donors get on the air and work other hams and allow them to gather up QSO points. All QSOs with volunteers count all bands, all modes. So basically, no matter what you're doing, even if you're not really doing a Vota, as long as it gets uploaded to Logbook of the World, it counts. And once again, except the work bands, 30, 17, and 12 meters. And there was a little bit of controversy about that. People are saying, well, you did that in 2014. Why aren't you doing it now? But there are also people that said, hey, those bands are safe havens away from contest. And this is really kind of a contest. And keep it on the contest band. So, but we decided this year we would not put it on the work bands. And keep in mind, if you're a contester, all contest contacts count, as long as the guys you're working use Logbook of the World. So if you're in the contest, everybody you work in the contest, as long as they upload those contest logs, the Logbook of the World, you're going to get credit for it. You don't need to do anything on your end, and that includes even the CQ contest and the NAQP contest. All those points count. even if you're not an ARRL member, if you're not on Logbook of the World, as long as the guy that you're working uploads to Logbook of the World. And the point values for each type of ARRL volunteer vary according to a chart that's available on the website. And I'm going to show you guys. I downloaded the data and put it onto a slide here, but it's on ARRL.org/Vota. And keep in mind, if you're a person that maybe has more than one position, for example, you're both a volunteer examiner and a licensed instructor and a section manager, you have to go through and look at, well, actually, the Logbook of the World will go through and look at which one of those has the highest point value, and that's the point value you will get. You don't accumulate them. So, for example, I'm a director. I'm worth a certain number of points, but I'm also a volunteer examiner. I'm also a registered instructor, licensed instructor. And so I could be worth a lot of points, more than I am, but I only get the director points. That's the highest point value. Some important information. If you're an ARRL volunteer, every contact, I would recommend and really ask you, every contact you make this year, whether it's in social, rag chewing or whatever it is, load it up the Logbook of the World. This only works if all ARRL volunteers that are on the air participate, because you're denying somebody the ability to get points if you're a volunteer and you're making contacts, you're not uploading those contacts onto Logbook of the World. If you do operate from your own QTH under a club call sign, that can count too. Contact Bart, W9JJ, ARRL.org, and tell them what other call signs you use at your QTH. I'll give you an example. For the CQ Worked All Prefix contest, here at my QTH, we use a club call sign of Whiskey Mike 7 Alpha because it's a lot rarer prefix for a Worked All Prefix contest. I'm the trustee for this call sign, and we use this call sign at my QTH only, and primarily only when I have multi-op contest efforts here. I can go ahead and notify Bart, and he can actually link my W7VO call sign and WM7A together. And then everybody that works this at my house, at W7VO will get credit for contacts made with WM7A during those particular contests. So there is a way to operate under more than one call sign as long as it's associated with at the station of somebody who is a ARRL volunteer. You can still get Vota credit for it. And yes, DX contacts too, count too. There were an awful lot of countries and hams in those countries that participated in here and wanted to work as many US states as they could. Many of the participants in the Centennial event were DX, and they want those points. So if you work somebody on work DX, just even if it's a DXpedition, go ahead and upload that information up to Logbook of the World. You're going to need that anyway for your confirmation, but they do count too. What do not count are working through repeaters, echo link, right? The non-radio wave modes, WinLink, anything that's not basically peer-to-peer is not gonna cut it, and those contacts will not count. So let's take a look at this volunteer point table, and you can see at the very top of the heap here is the ARRL president. He's worth 300 points. So everybody he works is going to get 300 points. So if you get out there listening for volunteers that are going to be on the air, he'd be the one to find. It goes down then to a president emeritus worth 275, and it works your way down to a director such as myself is worth 225 points. That's nothing to sneeze at. A vice director like Vice Director Tharp is 200 points. Work your way down to if you're a Maxim Society member, you're worth 50 points, and we're actually looking at increasing that. Here, I think we're going to talk about that at the next PSC meeting. Where's trying to find the section managers here? Past section managers worth 100. So section managers worth 175 points. So Mr. Dan, you're worth 175 points. You're going to be hot ticket out there on the volunteers on the air event. So anyway, all the way down to ARRL, standard ARRL member being 1 point, or using an ARRL affiliated club call sign is worth 1 point. That would be for people that are not, don't have anybody high with a higher level of points in that group. If you're a life member, you're worth 2 points and everything. So everybody's worth something, as long as you're an ARRL member. How do you call CQ for Vota? Once again, find a clear frequency, right? You don't want to jam anybody. Stay away from known nets. For example, stay away from 14.300, the maritime mobile net. They'll chase you away if they find it too close to there. Stay away from the beacon frequencies that usually end in .100 on the CW portions of the band, CW/digital. Stay away from 14.230 to 14.232, 233, which is where slow scan television hangs out. Believe me, they'll all kick you off their quote unquote their frequencies. Best to concentrate on the general portions of the bands. That's where most of the people are going to be. Those are people that are going to need the states, for example. And don't forget now that 10 meters is open, the technician portion of 10 meters. I'm going to talk about my experience in Vota this last weekend here in a second, but try to stay in the general. Don't go down in the bottom end of the extra band, but because the idea is to get people on the air. And so stay in the general portions, and on 10 meters, stay in the technician portion. And what you do is just call CQ Vota if you're on CW, or just call CQ volunteers on the air and wait for the pileups. And I operated this last weekend, and there was a huge pileup for this event. I was amazed. Especially if you're worth a bunch of points, you might want to include your ARRL position. So I would, as I was talking to people in the event, and by the way, I did not operate this as a contest. I basically talked to everybody and thanked them if they're an ARRL volunteer. I thank them for being a volunteer. If they're ARRL member, I thank them for being a member. But I also let them know that, hey, by talking to me, you're going to get 225 points towards Vota. And of course, then other people tune by, listen to that. Next thing you know, you got a huge pileup. So if you're worth a bunch of points, you might want to include your ARRL position. For example, CQ Vota section manager, or SM, or CQ Vota life member, whatever you want to do to let people know what you're worth. And but basically, what you want to do is you want to have fun, right? The whole idea is to have fun. I certainly had a blast last weekend. So let's take a look at exactly what we did. We decided to do a Vota activation this last weekend, which was also the ARRL RITI Roundup contest. And what we did was we ran one station, which is the one left, the guy there with the coffee cup. That's Bob, W7CO. And at that time, he was operating RITI Roundup. Working stations using RITI. The station on the right, which is Daryl Anderson, W7GYM, he was on there working Vota, volunteers on the air using single sideband. So of course, it's a multi single station, so we move people around. But by the end of the weekend, we had a little bit over 1,000 RITI contacts, and this is in 22 hours of operating. A little bit over 1,000 RITI contacts and 681 single sideband contests on the second station devoted to Vota. A director we're using my call sign. We're 225 points. We gave out 387,000 points this last weekend in one Vota effort. So you see, the points can count up very quick. If you did work this last weekend on one of those two stations, you now have 225 Vota points. If you work this in both the RITI and our Vota station, it's two modes, probably two bands, you now have 450 points. It's that simple. So we did the work. You guys collect the points, and I've already turned in my all of my logbook of the world information for both the contest and the Vota effort. So how do you qualify for award? How do you get an award? Well, keep in mind, again, I'm going to say it again, participants do not need to upload to or participate in the logbook of the world. We know who you are based on the fact that the stations that have turned in their logs have you in their log. The uploads, well, they just said that. Uploads to the logbook of the world by the W1AW portable stations and by the volunteers will feed the point scoring system. The association management software, or AMS, at headquarters know who all the ARRL volunteers are and what they do for the league. So part of our profile on in their association management software are little flags that say whether we're a life member, whether we're a Diamond Club member, whether we're a Maximum Society member, but also whether we're a director, vice director, or just an ARRL member. So they know who we are, and that's all mixed together through software into Logbook of the World, and then it spits out the awards. However, we do encourage, if you're not an ARRL member, to please consider joining the ARRL member, because after all, that's what we're all about, right? We wouldn't have who we are without the ARRL. I will say that the dashboard I discussed a little bit early at vota.arrl.org is not complete yet. You notice here it says call sign points, it says under construction. And if you look at a few of the other pages, they're still under construction too. And they're trying to get IT to get these pages up, but they've got these blank pages up for now. This is a page I pulled down. I talked to Bart today from the International Grid Chase Leaderboard. They are going to have a live leaderboard of who's out of everybody, all, so here you can see they have 46,000 pages of 25 that on the leaderboard. That's how many people were participating in the international, let you guys multiply that, in the International Grid Chase. And you can either filter it by all, by band, by mode, by call sign, DXEC, by the worked all zone area, or by the state, and kind of see where you fit in with everybody else. So, people that are really competitive are going to want to, they're going to want to be the overall ranking, and some guys really don't care. So it's going to be interesting to see how this works out, but you can kind of compare what you do with everybody else. Once again, this is what they did in 2018. This is not what the final page is going to look like for the volunteers on the air page. How one applies for an award, this is also from the International Grid Chase, is you basically load in your call sign, what bands or modes you want, and then certificate search. It'll tell you what you're qualified for, and you can download it right here in PDF format and print it out, and you're done. So it's really that simple. So that's all I've got here. I hope this was informative to you. I really expect to see you guys on the air. I will be on the air a lot here in the next over the next year. I'll certainly be on as much as I am. I'm sure there'll be other people on here, and I would encourage you, especially if you're a volunteer, get on and hand out some points. With that, I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to turn sharing off and see if there's any questions.
Okay, Barry, how we doing? Barry? Mr.
We're doing pretty good. A lot of discussion, but no real questions. So Scott wanted to know if someone needs Nebraska for worked all states, it doesn't count for worked all states if it's a W1AW/X, correct?
The answer is, yeah, the answer is no. I talked to him specifically. They want to keep those two separated.
Okay. Just to be sure.
Okay.
Can we ask questions just by speaking up?
Well, I'd rather people held up their hand and stuff, but Ted, there's nobody holding their hand up and nothing going on in text, so go ahead and take the floor.
Thank you. I'm on my cell phone. I apologize. I heard the speaker say that you don't have to be a member of Logbook of the World to get points. And that doesn't make sense to me, because the way Logbook of the World works is that both parties have to submit their logs, and Logbook of the World matches the QSOs up. Otherwise,
the reason for that I explained is that Logbook of the World, because all of the W1AW stations and all the volunteers are going to upload their logs, and if you're in the log, they know it. There's no confirmation required. You'll be able to go onto the website and figure out which and confirm those on the website if you want to, but you don't need that second confirmation. They're going by the logs that are being submitted to Logbook of the World from these special stations.
Okay, but I think, are you not talking about W1AW stations?
Yeah, well, yeah, both. W1AW and the volunteers. That's why I asked that all volunteers, if whoever you work this year, please submit your logs to Logbook of the World, so that people get credit for the contacts.
Okay.
Okay,
It's really,
The-
it's
the-
more simpler than you think it would be. I had this exactly the same problem with it. And I couldn't
The law-
understand that. And finally, Bob Nauman had to explain to me that it just really is one-sided. They upload the logs, you get credit for it when you go to apply, and that's the end of it.
If the individual W1AW stations are not going to be submitting their logs to W1AW, the coordinators, and only the coordinators will be checking the logs and everything, will be submitting the logs to W1AW. So that'll make it a lot more trustworthy.
Right. Yeah, you're exactly right. And I mentioned that at the beginning, but you're right. The coordinators are responsible for collecting all those and getting the data to headquarters to get uploaded.
okay. Brent from Canada, you got your hand up. Brad, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. First of all, great presentation. Thank you very much for taking the time to do it. I'm just curious, and I think I know the answer already, but I'm going to ask anyway. If I'm out doing a POTA activation, so I go out tomorrow, let's say, and I activate a park, I guess, like I'm an ARRL, I live in Canada, but I am an ARRL member. I upload my contacts from my software to Logbook of the World. Obviously, those people are going to get a point from me, and vice versa. I call CQ POTA, and you happen to just be on the air and you hear me and you give your call and we do the POTA exchange. Will there be any conflict with the Vota?
No, what'll happen is if the only position you have is an ARRL member, everybody you work gets 1 point.
As long as I upload my log to Logbook of the World,
That's correct.
which I do both. I'm a member and
Yeah, that's once again, like I said, I would recommend that everybody upload all their logs because you're gonna be working with a lot of people who are not ARRL members who may want to participate in the program. The only way they get points is from your log that's uploaded.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Okay, Pete, you want to take it away?
Yeah, can you hear me?
You're just fine.
All right. Assistant Emergency Coordinators, AECs, I notice are not on the list of volunteers. Is that an oversight? Will they be added?
Hang on, let me look. I had the list right in front of me here a little while ago. Hang on a second. I didn't see anything that wasn't on the list, but let me look here real quick. It would be probably around the above an EC. It'd be SEC.
It would be below
If they're not on
the.
the list, if they're not on the list, we can certainly get it added. Once again, this list is not. They can make changes. It's worth 30 points.
An AEC, Assistant Emergency Coordinator?
AEC. Okay, hang on a second. There's an ASEC, assistant section emergency coordinator.
Is that the same
That's
thing?
not the same. Not the same thing.
I didn't think so.
You had
Worth 12 points. So somebody who is an ASEC is worth 12 points. Somebody who is a section emergency coordinator is worth 30 points. Basically, the more work you do, the more points they give you.
yeah,
So
but
there's no AEC on the list, right?
I'm looking at it right now.
ARRL does not track AECs.
Hey, what I will do, I will make sure that gets put on there. I don't see it either. And if it's not on there, it needs to be on there. So
give us an oversight.
because I'm an AEC and I don't, like you say, I'll look at it again, but I will make sure that gets added.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Mike, though, it sounds, I'm not involved in this directly, but it's from what I just heard, it sounds like there might be a problem because you're saying the ARRL knows who everybody is and what they do. And someone just said the ARRL does not track AECs. So even if they're on the list, they won't know.
I know. And I have to, that's up to staff to figure all that out. But if AEC is not on here, then it should be out. It might have just been an oversight. I don't know what to tell you, but I will bring it up to their attention.
Well, AECs are not appointed.
Well,
ECs are.
that's true. Is it true?
Well,
Oh,
but we
the
have,
issue
I mean,
for-
Members.
I have assistant directors that are appointed by me. They're not appointed by headquarters.
Yeah, what's the database look like for that? What's it looking like?
Yeah.
Well,
The issue will be whether they're registered in some way with the ARRL. Even if the ARRL is willing to give points for AECs, if they don't know who they are, it's not going to count.
No,
Well-
no, you're absolutely right. And that's why I've got to bring this up to their attention. They have to make sure. And that's one thing that's going to be talked about in the PSC meeting. Next Tuesday, I'm headed to Newington for the ARRL board meeting. As the chair of the PSC, I've got a PSC meeting while we're there on the Thursday before the board meeting. I've already got a note to talk about two things. One of them is the Maxim Society members. Maxim Society members are worth 50 points. Some of these Maxim Society members, they don't volunteer time, they volunteer money. And sometimes it's literally millions of dollars, which has a huge impact on the organization. They should be worth more than 50 points. So we're going to look at that. But I've also got to make sure that every position that's on here is flagged in that management association software. Otherwise, like you say, you're absolutely right. It's useless. And I don't know that for a fact. I've got a note already based on what I was able to figure out today that what you're saying may or may not be true. I've got to talk to the staff guys, and I'll be doing that in the PSC meeting. But like I said, as I said, this is not totally gelled yet, but it will be by the end of the year when all the final points are out.
So I am an AEC. I was appointed by my section manager, and I have a certificate from the ARRL. So I don't understand the comment that was made previously that they're not recognized.
Well, I said I'm an AEC also. I have a certificate hanging on my wall that says I'm an AEC, and it's got an ARRL logo on it. So I don't know. I say I'll have to research that, but thank you for bringing it up. Let's move on.
Yeah, let's Scott, you want to take it away?
So I have a question with regard to, I hope you guys can hear me. I just switched devices. So I have a question with regard to worked all states and the fact that this is somehow excluded. I find that really weird. The reason I find it weird is that I can't think of any other contact that you would make in the United States with somebody who uploads their logs to Logbook of the World that wouldn't count for worked all states.
I'm just saying,
I think
my response to that is what I specifically talked to Bart about that today. And it may be because it's a one-way thing where they don't have to upload their log.
Right. But in other words, but if you do, and you get a confirmation, it seems to me like if I work Tippecanoe County, Indiana, if I work somebody there and it's, I upload and they upload, it should count. I mean, it's a contact. It's not like, it's more work to exclude it than to just count it.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I'm only reporting, but but Scott, what I can tell you is, Bart, you're working with Bart. By the way, Scott here is one of our coordinators for the state of Oregon, working with the Willamette Valley DX Club. And why don't you give Bart a call and let him know what your thoughts are on that?
I think I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Steve, you want to take it? Then we'll jump over to the tech stuff. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Sure.
Okay, I'm getting over the flu, so please excuse me. Mike, thank you for the presentation, but I have a couple of quick questions. A gentleman a few minutes ago asked you that if he's running a POTA station, he can get credit for the Vota. Now, my question is, does he have to be using the W1AW call for the POTA station, or does this count when he's using his own personal call?
If he's an ARRL member, it counts. He gets 1 point. He gives whoever he works 1 point as being an ARRL member.
Okay, so he doesn't have to use the W1AW call.
No. It's like I said, it's a two-sided coin. Half of it is the W1AW, which is the worked all states part of it, and the second is the volunteers on the air part of it, which it's really the guys out there calling CQ, you know, just like you call CQ POTA, call CQ Vota. And, you know, like I said, I can work a non-AW, I can work, they do the Worked All Europe contest, you know, the DX contest, Worked All Europe DX contest, and still give them Vota points, even though it's not even an ARRL contest.
Okay. Okay. The second question is there any value to running a W1AW stroke 3 for me portable? Is there any differentiation as opposed to running it out of a house or club?
Well, I mean, the idea is to get groups of guys together and give out tons of contacts.
Wait a minute.
The answer to the question is no, it doesn't really matter as long as you can, you know, make a lot of contacts and make, you know, give people the opportunity to get that particular state.
Wait a minute. I think I read something into his question here. Not everybody's going to be able to run BW1AW / whatever. That's a coordinated station, and it's not, you should just become W1AW.
No. It's all coordinated through the coordinator is the one that assigns bands, times, and modes.
Right.
So he's working off a big spreadsheet, and you're only going to be on the air on a designated time, a designated man, and a designated mode.
I understand that. I live in Delaware and I'm on the list, and I'm going to be activating W1AW stroke 3. So that's what I was trying to find out, whether if I go to a park or some other place and do stroke 3 portable, was there any differentiation between that and running it out of a club or your house or anything like that?
I think as long as you're using the call sign and you're in Delaware, I don't think it should matter.
Okay.
But keep in mind, a portable operation, you're not going to maybe have the.
I understand. You're not going to have the footprint
to work a lot of people that are going to need Delaware.
Right. I understand that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So was this information useful to people? You got to go out and get on the air now and give people some points.
I think so. Barry, what's the text look like there? What we got for questions?
We're good. We've been answering all of the questions in the chat.
Okay. It's been a good presentation. Get this thing on YouTube and out there so more people get the value out of it here.
Just remember, everybody, that it's still something that's being worked on. They're not going to have the leaderboards up right away. It's probably going to take a little while to get the leaderboards up. So it's going to frustrate a lot of people that they're not going to see their names on the leaderboards. And it's like Mike said, it's a work in progress, and just be patient with them.
And one thing I will say too is I'm going to be doing this presentation for the ARRL board, for the entire board, because some of them are not that familiar with this program themselves. So I'm going to be educating the board the same way I've educated you guys here tonight. So, like I say, if you're a section manager, get your information out in your sections. If you're a in a leadership position, please make sure everybody as much as you can know about this.
Okay, sounds good. I don't see any more hands up.
We're good in chat.
Okay.
But Dave wants to know when are they going to get the t-shirts, mugs, and caps?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know where they are with that. I know they had all that for the other events. I can't imagine them turning up the opportunity to sell people things. So I would say that they're coming. But once again, keep in mind this is a year-long event, and I would count on there being some promotional merchandise involved here.
Is there a target date for this thing to be up and running smoothly?
It's whenever Bart gets IT support to finish it. Part of the problem is that Bart ended up being sick, pretty sick for the last month of the year, and Paul Baroque, who is his partner in crime, their headquarters, was also sick and in the hospital for a couple of weeks, right in December. So this really got put on the back burner. There was nobody there really to work on it until just a couple of weeks before, maybe even the week before the end of the year. So this whole thing has come together in a tremendously quick amount of time. And, like I said, I was a little miffed at headquarters of taking 6 months before they started working on it. Well, it turns out that that's not really the case. There were some other issues involved. So I just ask people to be patient, to work the kinks out. But in the meantime, everything right now, like I said, I uploaded 1,800 contacts into Logbook of the World yesterday. So the data is there. It's the database is being built.
Okay. Well, giving out a call out there for questions. No hands up. And Barry's watching the chat, and I don't see anything in chat, and I gather you don't either, Barry.
I have a
Nope.
question. Can you hear me?
We're good.
Go ahead.
I mentioned this in chat. Utah is up next week, and I'm the coordinator. And so I'm trying to learn as much as possible so I can sound not so stupid. Let me go back to that Workdale States comment made earlier. As part of my my post to our website to announce this thing, I said I told people that I worked in the 2014 centennial, and it was a blast. The pileups were unbelievable. It was great. As a result of working W1AW/7 and also under my own call sign, I did a Workdale States working nothing but W1AW stations. And I put a picture of that award, it's a really nice looking award, in my post. And now I'm hearing that working the W1AW portable stations will not give you credit towards Workdale States. That's alarming.
Well, unless I misinterpreted what Bart told me today, that, like I say, I think it may be because it could be a one-way. There's no second log going in there, right? There's not matching logs. They're matching people against, or call signs against logs that are in Logbook of the World. Not the whole time and date and timestamp thing part of Logbook of the World. That's the security side of it. And I guess maybe the point is it's not as secure as Logbook of the World is.
Well, I get that, but then I heard the comment that but what if both stations submit their logs with the appropriate information and they get synced up? Then you should be able to award a Workdale States credit to that person.
And I would agree with you.
Totally
but like
agree.
I said, my interpretation talking to Bart was they really didn't want to mix the two. But like I said, we're gonna try to get that settled up with Bart, and Scott's going to be talking to him. Maybe you can get that clarified.
I've already written the note
to Bart.
I've already written the note and I'm about to hit send.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now, by the way, I'm hoping that Bart is not sick, but I need to know if this is true or not as soon as I can.
Okay. No, Bart was there. I talked to him today, so he should be there tomorrow at
Okay.
headquarters.
What's a good way for you to get back to everybody here on some of these?
What you can do, Dan, is I'll let you know, and then you can announce it on your next RATPAC. This is an announcement.
Yes, I can do that.
I only have influence over what happens in my own division, so I can't. If you want to do it through RATPAC.
And Mike, I'm also copying you on it, so you'll hopefully get a reply.
Okay, I'd like to know, because maybe I'll have to change what I try to teach the board.
Yeah. Matt, you got your hand up. You want to take it away?
I was, just going to make a comment. I too am a Workdale States chaser. I mean, for goodness sake, it's just easy enough to ask the operator who's behind the W1AW portable call for their personal call sign and ask them if they do a second log entry. I mean, I know there's a few that I need. I mean, that would be certainly the way I would beg for for that Workdale States credit if all this other stuff doesn't get fixed in the back end over the course of the year.
May I comment on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
When I was W1AW/7, I was on CW, and if someone asked me for my call sign, I'd be happy to give it. but logging them, the log I am currently logging is W1AW/7. What you need is a log entry with my call sign in it. That would require me to make a change to say N1MM quickly to do that, or make a note someplace and then go back and do it.
I
That
just
would,
I just
can
scribbled
chime
it
in
on
on that.
paper.
Well, yes, Abe. So yeah, when I did W1AW/0 in North Dakota for the Centennial, I had the notebook for the oddball calls so that I could go ahead and log them later. But the Parks on the Air, it's got an interesting aspect using the ADIF specification of the upload file. You have both the station call sign, in this case would be W1AW/0, and then you also have the operator call sign of Kilo 0 Bravo Bravo Charlie in another column. So, I mean, that might be something, Mike, that you can take back to headquarters to see if you can
that's a
utilize
good
that.
idea. That's a good idea.
Yep.
And that would do it without having to change your logging program.
Mike?
Well, I guess I missed the point there. Can you repeat that again, Matt? Make sure I understand it. So you're
Yeah,
saying
so-
add another.
Well, just because, in the ADIF file specification, all the different, fields or columns that you have in that ADIF spec, you have the station call sign, which in this case is W1AW/7. And then you can also, like when you if you're an N1MM guy, you hit Control O, change operator. Well, then that's what fills in the operator call sign.
Right.
And that's where Whiskey 7 Victor Oscar or K0 BBC would go. So, I mean, so you'd know who then actually is, the operator. So.
Yeah, that's something maybe to talk to Bart about.
Yeah, that'd be a good Bart. Yep.
Yeah, they have to code that in to match those up as well.
Yep.
And then it would be seamless.
Yeah, it would be a definite maybe. All right. Well, let's say we got a little bit of time to figure out some of the finer points of that, but in the land of work them now, paperwork later. Yeah, just grab the ops call sign and beg for for them to log it. Like say, I always carry a notebook on these goofy things because especially when I was in the field when I did it, you should have a notebook to write down all the anomalous stuff that goes on.
Well, like I told you earlier, I told Bart today, you guys better get rolling because I just uploaded 387,000 points to the system. So it's time to start working on it.
Nice.
We might ask, depending upon
LOTW.
depending on how all this falls out, we might ask you to come back in a few weeks or next month, Mike, and give an update of the progress and where it's going. Assuming
Yeah, especially as the website comes back together again. Maybe it'll be time to do a follow-up one about how to negotiate through the website and what pages that you use, because I knew very little about that. I like Matt was a W1AW guy and for a couple of different times during that event, but I was never chasing anything. So I was never on the other end of it. I'm not really an awards chaser too much. I'm more of just a contester guy, and the awards are the aftermath of the contest. But I did operate as W1AW, and I would highly recommend anybody that has a chance to do it, because the word I operate sometimes I operate out of the country in contests, and I operated from KH6LC on the Big Island of Hawaii and the ARRL DX phone a few years ago, and the word they use is fish in the barrel. Right. And it was the same way when I was operating this last weekend. I call CQ POTA and spot myself on the cluster. Next thing you know, the only thing you could do is pick out half of a letter of a call sign among the 50 people that were calling you all at the same time. And then you try to get one letter, then you get one letter of the call, and then you have to figure out of the 15 how to get a second letter of the call, and then narrow it down to the 10 guys that are still calling you. And then finally, if you're lucky, you got a YL, you can, the YL, but it takes some time to get these pulled out. If you're not used to working a pileup, it can be pretty darn intimidating. Although it's the DX, but DX stations do this all the time because of all these hungry US hams, but we're not as used to it and having gigantic pileups. And I guarantee if you're a high point value target, You're going to have some tremendous pileups. If you're a W1AW, you're going to have tremendous pileups, and make sure that you're using operators that aren't going to just pull their hair out and walk away. Thank you, Matt, for your input. By the way, Matt's a retired board director there, right along with me there. So thank you for being on here. Thank you very much for this evening. I appreciate you guys hanging around. I hope it was useful to you. And we'll hear you on the air, and we'll be working you on the air as the year progresses. And maybe about a month or so, I'm actually meeting with Bart and with Bob Nauman, the operations manager. I'm also meeting with Dave Minster. All three of us sitting down together and going through some of the stuff, and including this event. It's on the agenda. It'll be on the PSC agenda. So what I learned talking to Bob and Minster will be also able to discuss in the PSC meeting. So we'll get some of these kinks ironed out and make this event even better. So anyway, is that it, Dan?
As soon as you're ready for a comeback on this thing, let me know. We'll get you back on here and keep everybody informed.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thank you guys, and everybody have a good evening.